A few days ago, EA revealed some crazy and also controversial things like how much Apex has earned over its whole lifetime, plans to put advertisements in their games, and also what the EA CEO plans to do with Apex. A lot of you may be asking, where did we get this information from? And it's actually from the EA Investors Call. EA do 4 of these a year, and they talk to their investors about how well their games are doing, how much the games are earning, and also answer some of the investors' questions. But unfortunately for us Apex players, recently the EA CEO hasn't had too much good to say about Apex, as in 2 of the last investors calls, the EA CEO did say Apex has not been meeting financial expectations and underperformed on that front, and he said this during season 17 and also season 19, which I guess clears up why this season is trying to sell us so much stuff. I mean, seriously, if you log onto this season, first of all, there is a brand new store open, there's also a brand new event open where you can only gather with packs, and on top of that, there's a new currency that you can use to upgrade a Cobalt guitar, which costs 150 heirloom shards. There is such a ridiculous amount of stuff to buy, and Respawn are clearly trying to switch up how they sell stuff, and that is why, because Apex just isn't making as much money as EA wants it to. In the most recent investors call, which was only a few days ago, EA didn't outright say Apex has been underperforming, but I suspect this is because every time he said this in the past, absolutely everybody has jumped on it and put it in their news headlines, which just isn't a very good look for Apex in general. Although even though he didn't outright say Apex has been underperforming, he did kind of tell people to put their hopes down for Apex for a while because it needs to bounce back basically. The thing is, EA still sees giant hope in Apex and still see it as one of their biggest games. They even said during this call, in terms of Apex, we saw great engagement and retention from players in Q4 of 2023. We continue to invest behind the franchise and expect to see some advancements and innovations over the next couple of seasons that will drive growth back into the franchise through financial year 2025. So basically they're really trying to make Apex something people want to play, and it definitely makes sense with solos coming back this season. For years, Respawn have been saying we're never adding back solos, even though it's been the #1 most fan requested mode, and they finally broke and added it back because they simply want more people on the game. EA did also elaborate on this in the call, saying we've also prioritized expanding Apex's appeal, making it more approachable for new and more casual players, with improved onboarding and simplified modes of play like 3 strikes and straight shot. Looking into the future, we will continue to invest in broadening the audience by building upon the epic characters and storytelling of this world that go beyond the current battle royale. The crazy thing about this quote is EA literally mentions the Apex lore and they want to specifically expand upon this, which is really strange when they're literally talking to a load of boomer investors who own like 10 yachts each. I really wonder what Respawn are planning to do with the lore. Deep down, I hope they look at the success of the Fallout show, maybe not the Halo show, and potentially make an Apex show. The EA CEO did also mention they're expanding beyond battle royale, and I do wonder if this is potentially referencing the new Titanfall project that recently got a lot more devs on board the development team over at Respawn. Although I don't like talking about this project too much because it is real, but also Titanfall projects have a notorious reputation of getting cancelled by EA or Respawn. EA do all of this talk about money though, and it makes you wonder, how much has Apex earned in its lifetime? Well, in this call, EA did reveal this figure, which is updated. Originally, a few years ago, we heard 1 billion, and everybody's used like the phrase $1 billion game anytime something goes wrong in Apex. But now, here's a new phrase for you. 3.4 billion in lifetime net bookings. Apex has earned 3.4 billion. This quote is literally taken from the EA CEO, where he was saying the HD title of Apex Legends has surpassed 3.4 billion in lifetime net bookings. In financial year 24, we're focused on building features and improving the quality of the experience to drive long-term engagement, positioning us for future revenue growth. For example, we finished the year with significant changes to the mechanics of our popular ranked mode. My god, do those Cobalt guitars sell? You could probably buy like 3 or 4 Cobalt guitars with 3.4 billion. Man, I really want one, but I am not buying one unless I get it from a pack. Believe it or not though, this wasn't the biggest takeaway from this EA investors call by the media. The media have really latched onto something the EA CEO was talking about, and it's kind of worrying, but it has a very interesting history. And this is EA's plan of potentially implementing real-life advertising within their AAA games, which definitely means Apex Legends. This story also comes from the investors call when the EA CEO was asked if if there were any plans for dynamic ad insertions inside traditional AAA games. Which, when he says that, I can just imagine dying in Apex Legends and then a full Burger King ad pops up or something like that. And the EA CEO, Andrew Wilson, did answer, "We have teams internally in the company right now looking at how we do very thoughtful implementations inside our game experiences." Which honestly isn't as bad as most publications are making out. Clearly EA are testing in-game ads, but I think if they were to ever release these in games, people would become extremely mad. When one of the NBA games tried this, there was giant backlash, although the NBA games, I feel like they're a lost cause these days. On top of this, the EA CEO did also say there are many billions of hours spent both creating, playing and watching their game experiences, and putting ads in those game experiences would be a driver of growth. And to that I say, no way, of course it would, but just because you can, doesn't mean you should. Because this headline recently blew up, a lot of people like Danny on PC did look into the history of advertising in video games. And when you look at his video, which will be linked in the description, it turns out a lot of the advertising done in the past was done by EA. Like in Battlefield 2, there were ads for Intel all over the game maps, which still exist to this day. Very tasteful. In Battlefield 2142, it was a lot more dystopian with ads for Pepsi, movies, and a lot more. It even turns out in the most recent Battlefield title, there was an ad for a Logitech mouse in one of the maps. Bear in mind, 2042 only came out a few years ago, so EA clearly aren't thinking about ads in video games. They've implemented them before, and it may just be a matter of time until they come in every EA game. I mean, let's not pretend like Respawn haven't advertised games in Apex before, although the games they did advertise were their own releases, so I wouldn't class this as proper advertising just yet. Even for me, some of my best gaming memories are just brand implementations in game, like Skate 3 Thrasher's Hall of Meat is just kind of an advertisement for the Thrasher magazine, who literally had a segment called Hall of Meat. So definitely check out Danny's video in the description after you've done with this video. On top of this controversial thing, EA did get in another controversy a few days before about wanting to use generative AI in video games, which is of course very controversial because it takes jobs from people. With the EA CEO saying, "We've done analysis across all our development processes, and right now, based on our early assessment, we believe that more than 50% of our development processes will be positively impacted by the advances in generative AI." Although I think it is a bit early to get mad at this one because we don't exactly know what the EA CEO is talking about here, and he's probably not talking about AI voices in games or AI image generation, but more likely just automated some extremely tedious processes in game development, so the developers who would normally be doing this can be put on more fulfilling work. And of course, there was another controversial thing in these calls, but honestly, we could look at it now as more of a cautionary tale to why you shouldn't spend money in Apex if you don't want that type of item to return. Because back in an investors call in early 2024, EA did reveal that the Final Fantasy event was one of the highest earning days of the year for Apex, because obviously so many people spent money on it. So they did this type of event again because it earned so much money, and we got the Shadow Society event, which followed the same format to the Final Fantasy event where you couldn't buy items outright and you had to get them from packs at a random chance. And also the final reward was a universal heirloom, and it seems these events, because they are so successful, are becoming much more of a frequent thing. And it seems they're also evolving, because when this season started, of course, as I mentioned prior, it launched with a new type of event, which is basically a smaller version of the Shadow Society event with no universal heirloom at the end, no death box at the end. It was just straight up a few skins for sale that you could only obtain through pack unboxings, which is just majorly dumb in my opinion. But because these events do so well, it seems they're here to stay and slowly evolve, so I guess gambling on packs is gonna be the new way to get skins. So what are your thoughts on ads in games and how much Apex has earned? And subscribe to stay updated with stuff like this.